Great. We're happy to be back. Have our first full day back at the office at YouTube after a devastating account termination. I'm sure you caught wind of some of that.
Yeah, of course. I was sad to see it. I mean, it seems to have happened to some other Bitcoiners like Pomp, but I was really surprised. I mean, what in that video could have set them off?
Well, we think it was related to talking about a certain country right now that's having a lot of political issues and protests, and we were just coming at it from the mining angle, but I don't want to mention it again because I think we basically said too many buzzwords in a short period of time, and it tripped the algorithm, and it just auto deleted our account, and then they brought us back when they realized it was a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ridiculous that these social media platforms are continuing the path of censorship. We've obviously seen it on Twitter, which makes me sad because I love Bitcoin Twitter, right? And I know some people have been getting on that other app, Getter. I tried to
Yeah.
I tried to shift my account over and I can't figure it out. So it's frustrating once you get used to a certain platform and it has the type of dominance that Twitter or YouTube has, because once they start this sort of censorship agenda, it's really hard to migrate somewhere else. And there aren't a lot of options. It just kind of proves the fact that we sort of have this oligopoly, this oligarchy of software platforms, and we only have a couple to choose from.
Yeah, I think the solution is, well, I mean I want to say first off, I'm not well we we made a big fuss on purpose to get our YouTube back in a timely manner, as it's a pretty big platform for us. I'm not convinced that it's outright censorship on YouTube's part. I think it's more like algorithmic moderation, if that makes sense. And I think the difference would be, I don't think it was necessarily targeted. I think any large account that suddenly starts talking about those things gets tripped because bots from countries where this political unrest will occur report the live stream enough times, essentially like an attack. So I think it's someone exploiting like a weakness in the algorithm. So I mean, I guess the ask would just be that Twitter and YouTube, they just do better. But who are they dependent upon to make that happen, right? Like they're not held liable by anyone really. They're not held liable by the government. It's just they just claim it's a private company, or it's a public company in some cases. So what are you going to do?
I know. Well, when it's interesting, I think you guys pointed this out about how many pages there are of these scam videos of Michael Saylor offering Bitcoin, and those don't get pulled off. And there are no bots that are able to track that type of activity. And I thought it was really interesting about a week or two ago when Michael Saylor came on Twitter Spaces with his friend Eric Weiss, the guy who orange pilled him. And he was talking about the idea of, as the internet evolves, to have maybe the Lightning Network set up where you have a wallet attached to your account so that there's some financial incentive to not engage in that type of behavior or scamming, because if you do, then whether it's one bot or 1,000 bots, you somehow get charged, right? And then people could actually profit on people trying to scam. So I don't know. I just think that more work needs to be done in this space, and they need to pull off the videos that are actually causing problems as opposed to the ones reporting news.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting idea. I like the creativity of it, of putting up a little Bitcoin or something, but I'm hesitant to turn like regular everyday things into a transaction. I don't want to live in this like dystopia where you have to like pay or put up Bitcoin to like open your car or like get it into your house, which seems to be what some people want to like use the Lightning Network and all the crypto networks for. They want to use NFTs to start your car in the morning. It doesn't make any sense to me. But there's certainly like a happy middle, and I think in this case it would be getting off YouTube, getting off Twitter, decentralizing and building our own platforms. And that's going to take some time, but that's where I'm really excited to see the dedication that people like Jack Dorsey are putting into it, and all the developers that he's working with.
Yeah. Have you heard of Zion yet?
A little bit. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, so this guy Justin started it, and one of the I think Tony Robbins is a backer, and one of the big names on it is this. Oh God, what is his name? It's this conservative personality that does really funny comedy videos, but it's basically decentralized, and everything is owned by you, and you can operate a Lightning node, and that's attached to your social media account, and it's similar to. I don't want to compare it to OnlyFans, but like basically you can create content that people unlock if they follow you and if they send you like sats, for example. So you can almost create like this little community of exclusive content. And again, everything is decentralized. They own nothing. They can't control anything that's done, censorship free. So I think it's a really cool move in the right direction. And a lot of Bitcoiners really are supporting him. He's a big Bitcoiner, the guy who started it. So I think Zion's really, really cool and is different than Getter because basically Zion is saying we can't censor. Even if we wanted to censor, we can't. Whereas Getter is saying we won't censor you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I went and claimed the profile and checked out Getter. It's very clearly, a lot of these social media projects like end up looking like copy paste projects, and they kind of get their roots that way because this is the best way things are done right now. YouTube is like probably the most efficient system for sharing videos right now, so that's why it wins. There are alternatives, they're just not as popular. I think with Zion, I can't remember that guy's name either. That red-haired comedian, is that who you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, his name, I'll tell you right now. Hold on.
JP Sears.
Yeah, JP Sears. That's it. He's so funny.
Yeah. All right. Well, shout out to JP Sears out here getting people to run their own servers. Is that part of it? You have to.
Yeah, like I have a Lightning node that I now have attached to that account. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty neat. Yeah, I'm all for that. I think you should store data that's important to you on your own server for sure and not be too reliant on these clouds because we had a charming example yesterday of what happens if you're deemed a bad actor or if just there's a glitch. You just lose everything.
I know. I'm excited to see where things go in terms of just I don't know, there being the opportunity to create places for more privacy and ownership online, but I just don't like when it's attached to venture capitalists marketing you tokens, right? So I wonder where all this is going to take us over the next couple of years, but I think we should have more ownership over the things that we post online and no one should be able to come in and just whether it's censor or, use algorithms to put certain information in front of you versus others. All of that needs to be cleaned up somehow. And maybe Bitcoin can help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you see this playing out for the future of Bitcoiners here? I'm not talking about the near term price or whether we're in a bull or bear market, but ultimately, I think we probably agree that Bitcoin is going to be very, very valuable. And, we're both kind of forward, like public facing people. You're probably way more public than I am about our Bitcoin ownership. So I just wondered, like, what is the plan there? Is there a point where you have to retreat from these social media accounts, or do you just stay linked like as a public facing Bitcoiner forever?
Do you mean like as the price goes up where potentially, you don't want to necessarily be out front with saying you own a ton of Bitcoin?
Yeah. There's a reason we never say how much we own, but I think that people who have, if the price of Bitcoin is $1 million, then all of us here who got in at $50,000 are going to become a target of some sort. Like it's because it's obvious that we'll have a ton of, Bitcoin compared to people who got in at $1 or $2 million.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And I have thought about it a little bit. I hope that we don't move in this direction of, we're headed towards authoritarianism and there's more and more civil unrest. And then people who have Bitcoin have this target on their back. I don't want to picture a world where I really need to arm myself, right? And put myself in some sort of like mini citadel where I have a dog that's going to attack people and try to come up to the door. But I agree with you. I think when you are out in the public and people know that you have Bitcoin, they make assumptions. And it's really funny right now because people assume that I have a ton of Bitcoin. I mean, I'm sure you get hit up right with these messages of, can you send me half a Bitcoin? I'm like, I wish I could send you half a Bitcoin. I would love to be able to just send someone half a Bitcoin, but hell no, like I need that. And, so I think it's funny because the great thing is whether you have 0.01 Bitcoin or 5 Bitcoin or 100,000 like Michael Saylor, nobody knows. And we're all at this table. You have a seat at our table, which is fantastic. And I'm going to continue to attach my face to it because I believe in it. I want to spread education and awareness, but I certainly, if there's people that are assuming that I'm like, a whale, they could come after me. They're very wrong. But number two, I was talking to someone and they brought up a really interesting point. Like, are we targeting billionaires? Like, is there someone standing outside of Jeff Bezos' house or, our Bill Miller's house waiting to attack them because they know that they have $1 billion in the bank account? I mean, I don't think so. So, I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting as the price goes up, but I'm pretty much out there. So I'm linked to all the things I've said about Bitcoin, and you can make your assumption as to whether I have less than one or more than one or what.
Yeah. No need to disclose all that. I'm curious because I can see like kind of like partly removed. I mean, we work together, but I can see like your trajectory as a Bitcoiner, and it's like you're like taking off into like Bitcoin lore stardom. So I'm just interested, like, what is the future like hold for you? Like, how do you think about yourself in the Bitcoin space, and where do you want to be, a few years from now?
That's very nice of you. I don't think about that. I fell into this in a way. It's almost like I was predisposed to appreciate Bitcoin because of my own financial background, and then being a reporter and seeing all these problems fester within society and finally connecting it to our broken monetary system, which is was so inspiring and like mind blowing to me when I read the Bitcoin Standard and went down the rabbit hole. And so I felt this like calling and vocation to spread the message and help other people, get on this arc when the world is being flooded with fiat chaos. And I really want to just continue down that path. Like, my goal is to educate as many people as possible and spread the awareness and help people understand and hold their hand through it, because I don't, I'm not an engineer. I'm not a finance background. I don't have these accolades that the Saifedeans of the world or billionaires like Michael Saylor do, but I know how to communicate a message. So I'm using my own background and skill set to try to translate and simplify the idea and the mission of Bitcoin to people that are like me and like don't have that background and don't understand it and are skeptical. I feel like we all started at the same point where we were like, what is this thing? Why would I trust it? I don't understand. I don't even understand the purpose of it. And I want to help kind of shepherd people in. So I don't have like a specific goal in mind. I just want to be able to support myself and buy as much Bitcoin as possible and help my family. I mean, the one thing I will say, and I've said it on other shows, is my family's from Poland. I love my parents so much, so dearly. And they lost everything in the 0809 financial crash, and they're still struggling a lot. And I just want to be able to retire them. I like, my dream is to be able to retire my parents, and then I'll worry about myself. And like, I'll always figure it out. I can always get a job doing something. McDonald's might be hiring in a couple of years if Bitcoin goes to zero. But like, if I can just retire my parents, I would be happy.
So your parents live in the States now, right?
Yeah, they live outside Chicago.
Oh, cool. All right. I'm from the Midwest as well.
Where?
I'm from Iowa City area.
Yeah.
I don't live there now, so don't come looking for me. People in the chat, but yeah, I really like that goal too. I think orange pilling my family has been some of my family has been one of the best the best parts about this in the last year. So how did that go? I mean, how has talking to your parents about Bitcoin gone so far?
Well, it's interesting. It's been two different journeys. My mom worked in banking. She's done a couple of different things ever since immigrating. And I give them so much credit for moving to a country in their late 30s, early 40s, not knowing the language and just like literally starting over with this idea of self-sacrifice to give their kids a better life and to give them the opportunity to to pursue the American dream. And so one of the jobs that my mom went into is being a bank teller. And in the 90s and early 2000s, like it was a different world in banking. And before Glass-Steagall was repealed, it was like, you know, you put your money in a bank account and got 6% interest on a savings account in the bank. And she would talk to me about how back then she wouldn't be allowed to like look into someone's account and necessarily see what they have. And then, you know, fast forward a decade, and now she's incentivized to, because if she sells a credit card or some other, you know, product that the bank offers, she would make more money, or she would make a small commission on it. And it was like totally flipped on its head, where all of a sudden banks are in this game and like everything is about profit and risk. And that was interesting to hear about. So because she was in the banking industry, I tried to approach it from that side of, you know, this is like this horrible system of greed and corruption. And it has a broken incentive system because of money printing. And, you know, Bitcoin is solving that. And so I sent her the Bitcoin Standard in Polish, which I was really excited about, because she was very skeptical. She likes physical things. She likes physical money. She likes gold. And after she read the Bitcoin Standard, she was like, okay, I get it. And she was less worried for me having Bitcoin. And then I sort of started explaining it to my dad, and I orange pilled him over the holidays. So everyone bought like a little bit of Bitcoin over the holidays because of me, which was really exciting.
That's amazing.
What
How
about your
about
family?
I've told this story on here before, but I wasn't really having any luck orange pilling my family. I mean, I wasn't really bothering with it because I figure if the price goes high enough, everyone has a breaking point and they'll just come to me. And that has been the case. Like they'll watch, like, I don't know, just general success, like just I'm like more happily employed than I've ever. And I think people see that, like the people I grew up with, the family around me, and they'll come to me when they have questions, you know. They know I'm like the guy that's into it. So there's no need to like beat them over the head with it. That being said, I do talk about it a lot at home. So they've kind of got it ringing in their ears, and we back on the farm got hit with like an eminent domain case,
Oh, wow.
which is BlackRock
Yeah.
using the government to
Mm-hmm.
seize some of our farmland to build a pipeline,
Mm-hmm.
which is like terrible, right? And so we're fighting this case, and I'm like, this is what I was trying to tell you guys. You don't own what you thought you owned. You
Yeah.
actually, you know, none of this property is yours. If you want actual property, the only thing you can go to store your wealth is Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is better than physical property in every conceivable way as an investment. I mean, just absolutely blows it out of the water, destroys gold. So they actually really some of them understood that, and they bought their first Bitcoin. Some have not, and you know that's fine. I'm definitely saving some for everyone in my family. So you know they don't. I'd like them to learn how to use it. That would be nice, but you know
Oh,
we'll be fine.
that's awesome. You know, that's really interesting because I covered some eminent domain cases when I was a reporter. And so I
Mhm.
learned a little bit about, you're right, how someone could just swoop in and all of a sudden you're in a battle for what you thought was yours. And
Yeah.
now everything's in question, and it costs so much money to try to even resolve those issues. And so you're absolutely right. I mean, these 21 million digital plots of land in cyberspace will be a lot clearer when it comes to who owns what, and really, you know, returns the power of the right to have property to us. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's not even that they're taking things from you. It's just the fact that they can. I mean, we you
Mhm.
sit so comfortably, like as you know, in middle America, nothing much is happening. No, you know, you're hang in Chicago more so, but you know, my family been there for like almost 100 years, and
Mhm.
in the area for like 120 years probably. So it was kind of a shock to get this letter and say, you know, you can either take this amount of money for this many years or this amount of money for this. You know, they give you an easement.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of weird ways to fight it, but I think the solution is to just buy Bitcoin, fight it as best you can, and just educate. Use this as an educational opportunity for farmers in the area to actually, you know, have a backup plan because farming as an independent independent farmer in America is getting harder and harder. You're getting bought out by corporations, and you're getting like these massive farms that need to make all the soy for everybody in
Oh
America are just getting bigger
God.
and bigger.
I know. I know. Have you read the Fiat Standard yet?
I edited it.
What?
Yeah, I edited that book. I've read it like 5 times.
Oh, okay, amazing. Yeah, I love what
Yeah.
Safe talks about with the food system and farming and what's happened with mass production, mass consumption, and all the soy. Yeah, the soy. So many soy boys.
Yeah. I that book is really devastating for a lot of reasons. But it really, I think, is going to do great to open people's eyes.
Yeah.
Um, Not in terms of health. It's not so much going to like tell them how to live, but it does present this very attractive option of, hey, you don't have to just consume, just like we didn't have to accept the money that's presented to us at birth. Like you don't have to just eat the food that's around you just because the government convinced everyone else to eat it, right?
Mhm. Well, you just reminded me, I have a shipment coming in from this small farm that I ordered from in Nebraska that has my favorite beef, and can't wait to get that shipment today.
Yeah,
Are
that's
you
awesome.
are you a carnivore?
I'm a carnivore in the sense that I eat like, yeah, as much meat as I
Okay.
can all the time, but I'm like a bad carnivore. I have like a terrible addiction to like ice cream and sweets that I'm always trying to fight.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I'm always impressed when people can do the full on carnivore diet, like just meat or just protein. I mean, you get ripped.
It's
Like you
expensive,
can,
man.
it is.
Yeah. You get lean. It's a lot of sats, but the biggest issue actually that I have with the carnivore diet, besides, craving other things, is like socially it's a bit odd, like if everyone's there, you know what I mean, getting dessert and you're like eating, I don't know, like bacon that you brought without, like, I don't know what you're supposed to eat at that time. And other than that, it's the preparation. It takes a lot of time to prepare healthy food, man. it's
Mhm.
it's it takes a lot of time. What's
I
your
know.
what How does your diet go? Do you have any special Bitcoin diet you're following?
Well, it's funny because I love that this is even a part of our conversation, because I feel like in the Bitcoin space we even care about like certain types of foods, or we have, similar diets because we care about this kind of thing, or we recognize the problems that fiat has created in the food system and all that in the food pyramid. But yeah, no, I mean, I've always been like a really healthy eater and a home cooker, so I make a lot of Polish and Italian cuisine. I do eat. I am a carnivore in the sense that I love beef and I eat as much of it as possible. But yeah, it's really sad that like inflation is causing all of it to get more and more expensive, because now you go to the grocery store and you can't get out without paying $100 or more. And that's the best way to go, is to actually make your own food, right? And buy the fresh foods. But everything
Mhm.
around you that is cheap is what's mass produced. And unfortunately, it's making people more and more unhealthy. So it's just like sad how messed up our whole system is, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you own, my advice for people would be to buy a freezer, like a big
Yeah.
freezer, and just go buy like half a cow. Buy, like literally
Yeah.
just go to the butcher and buy. You can, put down a couple grand, you'll be fed for a year. You'll have
You're
plenty of beef.
You're reminding me of Peter Schiff. The last time I interviewed him and we were talking about just like how dire everything was with inflation and the markets, I was like, so what should people do, Peter? Like, what should people do? And he's like, well, people should invest with me. But then he's like, people should go out and buy everything now, because it's going to get more and more expensive. So just go out there and like have a storage closet with everything from toilet paper to paper towels to half a cow to all of it. And then you'll be prepared for when the price, doubles, when inflation's out of control by the end of the year. So
Oh, this is something. Yeah. Oh, I want to see what these people in the comments are saying. People are a fan of your Omaha steaks, especially. Are they grass fed?
no, they're not Omaha steaks. They're from
Oh,
Nebraska. They're
okay.
Piedmontese, which is also what Joe Rogan eats. I found out he like just posted a steak the other day, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm eating Joe Rogan steak." What? It's really
That's
good, you
awesome.
guys. Piedmontese. It's awesome. It's awesome.
That's great. Someone else said, "Eat what you kill." What do you think about that? Have you ever hunted before?
I've never hunted, but okay, so my family's from Poland and I have relatives still who, live on these big farms and they would, they would have they would raise their chickens, they would harvest the eggs, and then they would chop up a good chicken for a nice little soup. And like, that was just a part of their life. They knew how to butcher things. And today I feel like we're so disconnected from our food. And one of my favorite TV hosts who I always like admired, Anthony Bourdain, he would always talk about that, how today people, especially in America, like they get almost grossed out by the idea of how the food actually gets to the table. But this is how, it's worked for thousands and thousands of years. And it's not necessarily gross. It's actually a painstaking, in some cases, like artistic process of like how you kill and to kill in a way that doesn't spoil the meat. I don't know if you've heard about, the idea of like, if you kill a cow or kill your livestock in a certain way that panics them and scares them, they release a chemical into the blood and it like destroys the meat, and to kill them in a way that honors the food, and then to cook it in a way that honors every single different organ, which is what I love about Italy and Italian culture and Italian cuisine, is like they find ways to incorporate every single part of the animal to not waste it. And I think that that's beautiful. That's the way it should operate, as opposed to these like, assembly lines of cows going through these massive factories and like all of them get killed. The cow did not have a good life. So I don't know how good the meat is. But yeah, so I'm cool. Like if you can kill your animal and like, and cook it, then cool. I mean, good for you.
Yeah. It's kind of a different thing. Like, this is one of the things I actually like about Jason Lowery's. I'm sure you're familiar with Jason Lowery's arguments for Bitcoin and much of like the hot water he gets himself into. But I mean, he's right to some extent. Like, we outsource all of the stuff that we don't like to do. Yeah. Like, I grew up like hunting and fishing. People like, we slaughtered our own cattle. Mm-hmm. We have chickens, all that kind of stuff. But now that I'm older, I don't like to do it. I have a nice life. I don't want to kill anything. Like, that sounds awful. You know what I mean? Even I would rather just outsource it. So it's kind of, I don't know. What do you think about that? What do you think about Jason Lowery's, we're outsourcing our violence, and we're going to do it eventually through Bitcoin, to bring it back to Bitcoin?
Yeah. I mean, I just had Lowery on my podcast a couple weeks ago, and it was one of the longest interviews I've done. His mind is very fascinating and it's interesting. And yeah, afterwards he got hit with some stuff online, and it was, everyone experiences that at some point. But no, I think it's really fascinating that he has this idea that, this could be essentially a military or a defense system in a way through technology. And I don't subscribe to this idea that Bitcoin will suddenly offer us a world of peace where there is no conflict and we don't have to necessarily defend borders. But it is interesting to think about a world where, as we continue to globalize and perhaps we do move into a standard where we have one common unit of account at the base layer of this increasingly globalized society that is highly technological and digital, how do we defend ourselves? Because on some level, we have to defend the network, and the network is decentralized. So we're, like he mentioned in my podcast, by protecting ourselves, we're also protecting the enemy. And there's this sort of new symbiotic relationship that happens between all the the stakeholders and the members of the network. And I think that Bitcoin is really unique in that and really interesting in that. So yeah, I like listening to him. I think he's really smart and interesting. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of people that just, stir up the status quo. I think we were getting a little bit complacent and a little bit drunk on our successes. Calls for $500,000 Bitcoin by the end of 2021. It was getting a little, I mean, not everywhere. I don't want to generalize, but some of the narratives get a little monotonous. You can't separate new faces from the old. The signal and the noise are just sometimes they just merge, and people just seem to come to a consensus. And I think you need someone like a Lowery, even if he's a spook, as people claim, like even if he was hired by the CIA to do this. I mean, he literally works for like the Department of Defense, right?
Yeah.
doesn't mean his ideas aren't valid or we can't learn something from them. I mean, I'm a big fan of the idea that you can learn something from anyone. So it's just like take the lessons that are there. One thing's for sure though, he's an eloquent speaker. I mean, I
Mhm.
like listening to him just because he's easy to listen to.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I also agree with kind of what you're alluding to of the sense that, we got a little cocky thinking that we were going to hit the six figures. And, it is surprising in a way because there was such a shift over the last year, more institutions coming in. We had a lot of liquidity. We had a lot of retail interest, and we were able to get up to these great, new all-time highs. And it's like all of a sudden the music stopped a little bit, and that demand has dried up. And, the question is, where is it going to come from, especially in an environment where now they're talking about trying to tighten. But in my opinion, they won't be able to tighten because they've just like inserted too many drugs into the system, and you need to keep it going because the withdrawal is going to be too painful. So yeah, I think it's interesting where we're going to be in over the next couple of months, because we need to get demand from somewhere. People have resorted to some of these altcoins and meme coins because they think that the appreciation, the possible gains are much higher, as opposed to trying to compound Bitcoin at this point. Gets more and more difficult as we're in the price range that we are. But at the same time, when Bitcoin wants to rip, it can rip, right? Like we can
Yeah.
hit that level in a matter of days or weeks, which would be really, really exciting. But I'm not worried about it long term. Like that's what I mentioned. Like I have a couple of TV hits this week that I'm doing, and it's like you have to zoom out. It's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market. Like this is a savings technology. Yes, it's volatile right now, but it's slowly draining liquidity from these other asset classes. And right now, bonds are the worst thing you could put your money in, right? Because with inflation, you have a negative yield. I don't even know why people are investing in bonds. It's like completely stupid to me.
Mhm.
And then hopefully it's draining from gold. And so I think, a 1 trillion market cap, we're so early, and there's so much opportunity to take over to the 10 to the 20 trillion cap. And like, think of, the price of what Bitcoin will be at that point. So we'll get there. I don't, I feel like all of us feel like we're in a little bit of a rush, but we need to zoom out.
Yeah, I think the question becomes, I mean, I remember like early on being worried about the price of Bitcoin escaping me. And I think that's like the wrong, for me, that seems to be the wrong mindset. I remember thinking like Bitcoin's going to go to like 100K tomorrow and I won't, I'll never be able to accumulate Bitcoin again.
Right. Yeah.
But you can accumulate Bitcoin at any price of US dollars, and the
Yeah.
function of it doesn't change. Like it will store your wealth, even if you're buying it at $3 million a coin, you know?
I know.
So I guess my question to you would be, let's say Bitcoin trades sideways for the next 3 years. I mean, does your investment strategy change? How do you feel about that if it just stayed the same?
My investment strategy doesn't. I mean, I'm really trying to dollar cost average. And as I make income, I use a portion to pay my fiat expenses, and I allocate the rest and as much as I can to Bitcoin. I think, right now, yes, it sucks. And it might make us nervous that we're sort of seeing these red candles down. But at the same time, this is when you should buy. And a lot of us, I'm sure when it was in the 60 range, right? If we were told like, hey, in 2 weeks, you're going to be able to buy it at 40, you'd probably be like, oh yes, like, I can buy more. So that's good. It feels safer to buy in the green, but it's actually safer to buy in the red. And I think we'll be happiest if we're accumulating more during these dips. So yeah, it would suck if it's sideways, but at the same time, it would allow us to accumulate more because again, this is me personally, I'm not worried about it reaching certain levels. Like I don't believe that 69 is the top. If people believe 69 is the top for Bitcoin, you shouldn't be in Bitcoin, and good luck with whatever else you're in. I mean,
Yeah, well, I think they're not. I think they're leaving. I think the people that thought 69 was the top are out.
yeah, well, they're selling to me. But and it's funny, I'm sure you've experienced this too. Like as I share the message more and as I am more public about it, the most interest I get where people are like, wait, what was that link you mentioned? Or where are you buying buying Bitcoin or I'm finally going to buy it, it's when it's running. It's when it's running up. And it's like, okay, so now you're coming in, you're entering at 50, 60,000, and then you're probably getting shaken out when it hits 40. And it's like, it should have been the opposite. You should be asking me right now while it's on sale, like, hey, how can I get some? I see that there's a correction. Let me jump in. And instead, it's always that FOMO, the opposite. Like the sentiment is always, yeah, I'll get in when it's running up, and that's not the way you should do it. So,
Yeah, I actually have a funny story about that. So, do you use the lightning tips on Twitter? Like, do you have?
Yeah, people
Have you
have
ever
sent me
turned that
tips.
on before?
Yeah, people have sent me tips, which is very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was kind of just curious about like that. And so I kept track of all the tips. Twitter doesn't really do it for you. So I just kind of made a spreadsheet of like
Uh-huh.
when people are sending tips, how much they're sending.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, they send tips when the price is highest. So when we were in like the 60s, I was getting like so many tips, and they're just like giving away, they're just handing out Bitcoin.
That's
And
amazing.
it is, but it's very strange
Yeah,
because
it is
it
strange.
shows that people are still irrational. Even Bitcoiners that understand how to send Bitcoin over Lightning are irrational, and they're being silly with their Bitcoin. Because actually now I would have more money if they had just sent me dollars than Bitcoin.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Because the price, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's very funny.
Wait, so are
But
you getting paid in Bitcoin or fiat at Bitcoin Magazine?
Bitcoin. Well, both.
Bi-
Technically fiat, and I
Okay.
use Strike to convert to
Convert it. Got
Bitcoin.
it. Got it.
Yeah, so I kind of judge how much I'm gonna need, and I
Hmm.
just flick the slider on, and
Hmm.
take like, I don't know, 10% fiat and the
Hmm.
rest in Bitcoin, something like that.
Are you spending your Bitcoin at all?
No, never.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Me neither.
sometimes I'll send some sats. There's like some cool projects. Like there was a cool project where you could see, like, watch videos, interviews with like OG Bitcoiners, and you had to pay sats to watch it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, this is really cool. I really respect these people. I want to watch their video. I'm gonna send,
Mhm.
a couple sats.
Awesome.
But other than that, no, I never sell or spend. How about you?
Yeah, no, I don't want to spend. Like I went to a Christmas party, a SoCal Bitcoin Christmas party, and you had to purchase in Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, damn it. Like I have to send sats. No, it's funny. It's like, I have this hoarding mentality of like, I don't want to sell. I don't want to, I want to just accumulate, accumulate, accumulate. And I think that's so interesting because there are so many countries out there where people, it's the total opposite, and they need it first as a medium of exchange. Whereas here, I look at it as that account, like that 401k that I don't want to touch until I really need to. Although I do hope that I get to a place where I can, maybe use my Bitcoin as collateral for a house. Like my dream is to be able to have a house. And I know that, like, obviously we talked about earlier how Bitcoin's the best property you can own, but at the same time, like my dream is to have a house that I create, that's my own, and that I decorate the way I want it. And like, it's my house that no one can, necessarily move me from. And I think part of the reason is because I've lived my whole life, like my career moved me around so much. Every 2 years I was moving, and it's like apartment, 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 new city, new city. I'm just so sick of it. I'm so tired. I just want to plant my roots
Hmm.
and have a place. So I'm hoping that Bitcoin will be a tool and an instrument that I use for that.
Yeah, I think. Have you checked out any of these lending protocols? I mean, I preach on this show like pretty much every day. Just keep your Bitcoin in cold storage, because I think
Mhm.
I think if that option's available to you, right, you're not like elderly, like you know how to do it, and you're able to do it safely. You have like a place to keep your cold storage. Um, I think you should do it. I think that's the best option. But for some people, they want to take on leverage, or they want to take Bitcoin backed loans. Have you ever looked into things like that?
No, but I look back and I definitely wish I had taken out some loans at the start of 2020 and like, or in March 2020, and just bought Bitcoin. It'd be way better off, but who knew?
Yeah, yeah. Are you interested in these like Coinbase or BlockFi's programs where you put up a little Bitcoin and then you take out the cash to fund your life in theory?
I mean, I haven't really looked into it. No, I'm my Bitcoin is in cold storage. I keep very little on exchanges, and I'm just not ready to make that move of like staking it and like taking any out as collateral. I'm not ready for that at this point. But in the future, maybe, I don't know. I just think it's so early, and I think there will be more products, and I just am not ready to do that yet. What about you?
I'm on your team exactly on that one. I look into it. I used BlockFi like pretty early on. Um
Mhm.
and it was okay. I think I probably would have saved more money in terms of like time and stress if I had just put it in
Mhm.
cold storage. And
Mhm.
I don't like the idea of institutions holding my Bitcoin. I mean, I got in Bitcoin in part to get away from having to pay money to use my own money. So,
Right.
but I looked into Coinbase's new program, and I don't know if they can get those the amount that they can fork over to you up, then I'd consider it. But it's probably a ways down the line. I still think it's better to just buy and hold. I think it's interesting to try new
Mhm.
software, new wallets, any new Bitcoin related programs. So
No, I completely agree with you. I think you have to use this. You have to use the products, you have to use the blockchain. You have to interact with it to really appreciate it. I guess I worry about some of these platforms because they do have, most of them have all these other tokens on them, and they're not FDIC insured. And if the government were to come in and, you know, deem all of these securities, obviously except for Bitcoin, I just don't know what would happen. And I feel a little bit insecure trusting them at
mhm,
this time. So
mhm.
I like to just, take custody and be my own bank with Bitcoin. But I do like things like the credit cards. Like I love BlockFi's credit card is the one I use for pretty much everything, and I earn Bitcoin back, which is fun. Oh, you didn't see it, but
Really.
yeah, that's the credit card, and
How
I
do you
earn
get
like.
a I have trouble getting approved for a credit card because I have never used credit. Do you think they would approve me?
Wait, really? You don't have like what?
I've never used, my producer's laughing at me because he had to help me try to get a credit card and I got denied. Um, no,
You
I'm a good citizen. I've paid all my debts and I don't have any, so I can't get a credit card.
Okay, so this is actually funny. Okay, so I mentioned my mom worked in banking. So ever since I was little, she was like, we have to start opening up credit cards for you, and you will spend a little and then we'll pay it off, all that, because we have to build your credit score because that's what you're going to need to function as a US citizen. And I was like, okay. So we would start. I mean, I had my first credit card probably when I was a teenager, and it wasn't to go crazy and get into debt. Like my family does not get into, crazy debt. But it was just to build my credit. So I had like a little card, and then we would always make sure to pay it off. And it's funny because some of my friends, I don't know, I don't know how I would function without so much anxiety if I had like an $8,000 credit card bill, because the insurance on that is so crazy, right? These credit cards, it's like 25% APR,
Yeah.
and it just compounds and compounds. And people are taking out like 10,000, 8,000. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like if I have $100 balance, I'm like, oh, like pay it off.
Yeah.
I always zero out. It's always like, here's the statement balance. I pay the whole thing off. I can't function with like knowing I have a credit card bill that's not paid off. Like that's just not how I can operate. So,
Yeah, yeah. My fiance is the exact same way. Fortunately, she has a credit
uh,
card, so we're good. We'll just use hers. But
oh,
you should talk to Dylan LeClaire about that because he is like degenerate level credit card college
are you
user. But
serious?
yeah, but he has like this master plan. I don't know if I should be sharing this publicly, but he has a great like debit and credit plan to acquire more Bitcoin, and it's very impressive. It's above my head. I don't understand
Oh,
it, but
he's
if I did,
used. Oh, so he's
yeah,
like
he's just
taking on debt to finance Bitcoin.
yeah. He's like, I don't know, what is he like 120% long? I have no idea, but
You know what?
it's it's
He's
out there.
such
I'm
he's
proud of him.
he's so young. Like I literally, when I met him in Nashville, I was like, I could have been your professor in school. Like I teach students as young as you, which is really awesome. And he was like, my mom loves you. And I was like, of course, like the mom's the fan. Like I love it. No, he's so sweet and he's so smart. But yeah, I mean, he's got age going for him. So for me, I don't want to take on that risk. Kiki LeClaire, that's her name. Hi, Kiki. I hope you're watching.
That's awesome. What do you teach? You're
I
a
teach
associate professor. What do you do?
I'm an adjunct professor at USC and
Okay.
I teach advanced video storytelling. So it's kind of like a capstone class for
Oh.
the journalism school, Annenberg. And I basically help the students make their portfolios with which they get their first jobs at news networks. And it's always a really fun class because by that point, they have a lot of experience writing and reporting on stories and shooting and all that, but it's like fine tuning those skills and helping them figure out where to apply and what job will kind of set their career in the right trajectory. And today there are so many more options because you have all these online platforms and you have podcasts and you have radio shows. And so before probably 10 years ago or when I was in school, it was like there was one path and only one path. It was like you started a small TV station and then you work your way up, and Instagram and all this like live citizen journalism did not exist. And
Mhm.
today you can go in one of a million directions. And some of my students, they have their own podcasts or their own shows or they're like little social media personalities that are trying to get bigger. And it's just so, so, so different. So it's fun to teach because I get to like learn how they see the world and how they see the industry evolving.
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, we should Chris, we should take that class because we definitely need help with our show. That's
It's
Do you
really
do
fun.
online or is it in person?
So it's hybrid now, but yeah, during the pandemic, it was primarily online, which is not as easy to teach, right? Because when you get into the portion of the class where they're like editing their stories, it's nice to be able to go over their shoulder and help them tinker with things, and it's a very interactive, hands-on class, so it's hard to do as well remotely. But at the same time, I think, we made it work. We made it work on Zoom and all that. But yeah, it's more fun in person for sure. But I love, like, it's my favorite is helping coach the students on camera stuff because it's just so fun to see. And I remember myself when I started how bad I was and how nervous I was and how high my voice was, and like I don't know. It's such a cool process to watch them, get on camera and like all of a sudden their persona changes and they have this totally different like voice, and they try to be like the anchor man that they see on TV. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like be yourself. Like that's not you. And they're like, sure
Yeah.
it is. And it sounds very robotic when they start and then they loosen up, and like, it's just nice. You see this like evolution and it's really cool. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah, teaching's amazing. I used to teach at a middle school, a lot
Oh,
of
nice.
writing and stuff like that. And it's similar. Like young people like take on the affectations that they see around them very
Yeah.
well. Like they're just
Mhm.
sponges. So they just like whoever they're looking up to, that's who they're pretending to write like. And you don't want to call them on it, but you want to like nurture it so they can take it their
Yeah.
own way. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's funny
I
because I'm trying to nudge them into Bitcoin, like in subtle ways, right? I'm just like,
Really?
like I try to get them to learn about it. I was actually really excited because a former student of mine, she's now a reporter in one of these local markets that you start in, and she messaged me and she goes, I just got the Bitcoin Standard in the mail today. I'm so excited and I'm trying to pitch a story about it, but my newsroom, it doesn't want to do it. And I'm like, well, here's a way to pitch it, because they told her that it's not relevant to the state or the city that she's in. And I'm like, no, here's how it's relevant. Everything's getting more expensive because this is what the rate of inflation is. This is a
Mhm.
technology that's trying to address and fix inflation. Like, what could be more relevant? Like,
Yeah.
it's so funny how much work we have to do to really educate people. But
Yeah.
yeah, so.
I mean, yeah, the option is, you can always help people set up to receive Bitcoin at their local business.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that goes a long way. I don't know what initiatives are out there to help people do that en masse, but I think it's a great thing when you see little stores, even the Bitcoin ATMs. I'm a little hesitant of the ATMs, but it's just another like visual reminder. And that might be the third or fourth kind of sighting someone makes in a day that convinces them to buy,
Mhm.
which is good for them. It's good for us. Everybody wins when more people join the network, I think.
Yeah. So a Bitcoin ATM story was the first story ever that I did on Bitcoin back in 2017 because I pitched it after I learned about Bitcoin. That was the only story that they let me do. And I love I think it was last year. Did you see the headline of them trying to like steal the Bitcoin ATM and trying to like pull it out? And it's like, that's not how it works. But but a great lesson.
Yeah. That'll happen. I want to pull it back to some contributors in the chat section here. We've got a lot of people asking what your cold storage solution of choice would be. Do you have
Cold
a favorite?
Storage?
Yeah.
I have Trezor, and someone set me up on it, and when I was kind of newer, and they showed me how to use it, and I felt like it was very easy. And so I use the brand Trezor.
Is it the newer ones that look kind of like thermometers? They look like meat thermometers on top. You know what I'm saying? They have a little screen.
They do have a screen, yeah, but it's like it's I don't know, the size of it's a little smaller than this. This is my hard drive.
Oh,
so it's
yeah.
like, yeah. But I like it. I know a lot of people like Ledger as well, which I've heard really good things about, but I've had Trezor and it's served me well. I always get nervous though, because it always asks me for firmware updates. It's like constantly like, do you want to update? And I'm like, yes, I guess, but like, why do we have to do this every day? I just like, I don't want my bank account, my bank to update every single day. What about you?
Actually, that's like a mainstream wallet. I have a bunch of them, but I've never used them. I just kind of give them to people, I guess. But yeah. Are they, do they support like altcoins and stuff, right?
I don't know. I only have Bitcoin on it. So I don't know.
That's one of the issues I was having with Ledger. So I started with a Ledger, I don't know, a couple years ago, and it was great. Like, it's a good user experience. It's like pretty easy. Good introduction, I guess. But then you'd be asked for updates like every day, and they're always for like XYZ, like shitcoin. It was always for like all these extra updates that we don't need, all this extra risk that you're taking on. So I think Trezor and Ledger are great places to start for people, but I really I think the goal is to always improve, like, learn how to use Bitcoin and then like level up, get yourself a cold card, learn how to use it. Looks like a calculator. This is the most open source, probably the most difficult to use among those three, but also the most rewarding in terms of like, you're going to have to learn how Bitcoin works to use that thing. Like, you're really going to have to dig into it and learn how it works, which is pretty fun and rewarding experience. It takes time.
Yeah, I think that this ecosystem is so interesting. The idea even of just self-custody and cold storage, because I think for younger people, it's just so easy to figure out and it's not a big deal. But I do think, as much as we want to harp on that message of like self-custody, not your keys, not your coin, I get it. And I totally am supportive of it. There's going to be a lot of people who don't want that worry, or don't, they need, the kind of avenues of the ETFs in order to invest in Bitcoin. And I think in order to move into mass adoption, we have to have more options, because I think it makes people nervous. At least the people I've talked to at the very, very beginning, all the newbies, the idea of like essentially putting your life savings on a hard drive, right? And remembering a seed phrase and all of that. And I love that there are options like the, CASA and having these like multi-sig, sort of options where multiple people are involved so that you can never really lose your keys. But at the same time, again, I just think people love the ease and convenience of our traditional system. And it's going to be hard to like make that shift over. And so the more options that we have where people feel like they don't have to worry and they can trust somebody, I just think that will help mass adoption. I do.
Yeah. And I think in general, I mean, to bring this back a little bit to like, I guess, lessons you could pull from the Fiat Standard, it's always better to just do your own research. The rewards are far higher, and you can avoid like societal pitfalls of centralization and central planning just
Mm-hmm.
by, beating around the bush a little bit, just asking people what, what they use, just open sourcing everything so that the knowledge is out there. And we can all get on board to Bitcoin in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somebody in the comments asking about Bitbox too. I've never used a Bitbox. I don't know, but I'd love to try it. You know what I mean? That's what I learned from all my wallet experiences is like I'd love to try that one out. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that.
Yeah. So I think as we wrap up here, do you have any like near future predictions for the Bitcoin community or the price or anything in general near term?
So last week or a week and a half, I'm like really off on what day or time it is at all times in this industry. But I think about a week ago, I was interviewing Lynn Alden, and I love talking to her because she's so tempered and so measured in her speech and her rhetoric about Bitcoin because she has so much macro knowledge. And I asked her about, like, where are we right now and how do we break out into new all-time highs? And the concern really that she was discussing with me was this idea of the demand drying up and we're shifting into a place of liquidity expansion and just like, this fiscal stimulus party that we had going on for a long time to almost liquidity withdrawal mode that, again, I kind of mentioned earlier. I just don't think that the Fed or the markets will be able to handle because I think that we're so leveraged and it's so delicate right now that the second they try to hike even a couple basis points, I think that it's going to potentially come cascading down and unwinding, and they need to like flood it back with liquidity. So I think there are choppy waters ahead, and that's what kind of she mentioned. She thinks that like volatility is going to be the name of the game for a while. We could go lower, but like we need a surge in demand we need liquidity for it to move up. And so I think the question is, where is that going to come from? Like, where is that going to come from? I don't see enough institutions coming on board. I thought that we would have more that sort of put it on their balance sheet or, admit that they have exposure, but we just have these sort of one-offs with Block and MicroStrategy and Tesla, and we don't have more action. So I think it's going to be choppy. And I hope that, when the Fed does rush in with, I think Pomp called it the money bazooka, when they initiate the water spout again, maybe that'll hit Bitcoin. But we need to drain some of the money out of gold and out of bonds. I think that's our best shot. So.
Yeah, I'm bullish enough for me. I see just a slow incremental rise of institutional adoption. It only takes one person. It only takes, a couple board members or CEO to get a company treasury in Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we'll be making, good speed into the new year.
Well, we need that spot ETF too. Like, I don't like the futures. I don't like the synthetic Bitcoin. I really think a spot ETF would be so helpful. Canada's already ahead of us on that. And the spot ETF would really open up those highway ramps for, the institutions or the pension funds to get on board, which would be great. And so I think that once they figure out the spot ETF, maybe that will be the momentum that we need.
Yeah, it could be. Well, I look forward to, playing it out, and we'll have to follow up with you and see how things are going a month or so for now, or soon. I don't know. We might have you back on really soon. I'm not sure.
Like every week, right?
Okay. We'll see you next week then, and see where we're at then. That sounds great.
All right. Sounds good. This is fun.
Yeah. Thanks for talking to me, Natalie. Have a good one.
You too. Bye, everybody.
See you later.